Good evening, everyone, and a very, very happy welcome on this beautiful Thursday evening. So, Pan today is a little upset, and he's quietly sitting with a frown. He's sitting in a corner and has got a frown. When mom asked him, "What happened, Pan?" he said, "Someone asked me to find some nouns. So I'm just sitting and thinking how to find them, and that is why I'm sitting with a frown. I do not know where nouns can be found." Pan's mother smiled and said, "Pan, look all around and name the animals, the places, the people, and things, and don't frown, for in their names you will find the nouns." So simple. And then Pan said, "Oh, is that so?" So Pan, now what happened? When Pan got clear with the noun, he said, "Okay, I will find them somehow." Then, "Mom, there is a word called a verb. It's something which I have never heard." "Really, Pan? It's every action you do." That's what Ma said. "Really, Pan? It's every action you do, and it's old actions and something new." So Pan said, "Okay, now I know this as much." "Okay, Mom. Now, how do I find adjectives that go with the noun?" So Pan says, "How do I find adjectives that go with the noun?" "Wait, Pan," she said. "We'll play a game and we will learn about adjectives somehow." So then Pan asked, "Mom, will prepositions be hard to do?" So she said, "Oh no, Pan, that's not true. Articles opposite punctuation, joining things with a conjunction. So that is it. It's so simple to do. These are all parts of grammar, and we will learn them with a few games. You will have to do the names and play some games, and we are going to learn it together. So there is that. We have to make it that easy and that wonderful for children to grow into, understanding grammar. A couple of months back, we did a lovely workshop about numeracy around the world, around the environment. And today I thought we should just do, because we've done phonics, we've done language development, a lot of other topics. But when I'm actually talking to a lot of children also, so they perhaps grammar is something which can be made a little more fun, one, and it can be actually found in the environment. So I think, and also there's so many games which used to be very common everyday games, which I don't see children playing so much anymore. So I thought we should recollect all those games and we should just find grammar in the environment. So, and how early to begin? That's another question people would ask, that, when can I start teaching children grammar? Well, the minute you teach them the first name of the first thing, you've taught them one part of grammar, haven't you? When you've told them to do the first action, you've taught them the second part of it. When you describe something to them, you've taught the third part of it. And when you tell them to hurry up or do things slowly, you've actually taught them adverbs when you're asked. So there is so much we are doing without really realizing that, my God, we are teaching them grammar from the day we begin to speak to children. So let's look for grammar all around us. We're going to go very quick today. I'm going to make it very short, very crisp, but I am going to just explore this whole world of grammar with you, right? So there's a lovely game we used to play, who took the cookie from the cookie jar? So I name somebody and say that, okay, Rakhi took the cookie from the cookie jar. So Rakhi says, "Who, me? Cannot be." And then she says, "Shukla took the cookie from the cookie jar." And Shukla says, "Who, me? Cannot be." And she names more and more people. And it goes on till the children learn the names of all the children in the group. So it's a small activity, but it also teaches the children names. There's another beautiful game that we used to play, standing in a circle. These are all games which don't need resources. So it is this game that's saying be quick. So name some names of animals. And then you say, a dog, Be quick, and you tap the next person, and the person says another name and then says be quick, and then you change the concept. You say that, okay, now give me some names of colors, and or so you can keep changing the concepts, and you can do this beautiful be quick activity. The another one that is lovely is the name place animal thing. I don't, the other day I was talking to some children and I said, do you play that game? They said, no, not really. So it's such a lovely game to play, where you actually, and then you have three main characters in the game. One is the caller and says start, and the next one is the thinker, who thinks the letters in the mind, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N. And then the caller says stop. And then the person says, okay, so I have stopped on the letter H. And then the players will write a name of a person, a place, an animal, and a thing. And that becomes a beautiful rhythm. So the caller, the thinker, and the players. So it also becomes a very, very nice kind of a game. And it's very interesting that initially we find children just telling them any letter, then slowly they realize that no, we have to stop at the letter that when the caller says stop. So it just becomes a very interesting way of getting the children to do a whole processing with their team members. And what does it need? It needs a sheet of paper and it needs one pencil. That's it, nothing else. There's just no. I'm also today concentrating, there's a lot of, when we started teaching, the amount of availability on a Google or was not there. But today, what I have picked up is the simplest of things that I have played with the children. So what happens is, I know this works. So many games available. Another thing I would like to also tell everybody to do is, please make your lists of games. Like today, when I was sitting and preparing for the webinar, I have my lists for almost a lot of concepts, right? But today I realized that I have misplaced my list of my grammar activities, which I found successful over a period of time. I know I have it somewhere and I will find it and keep it, but we must keep it ready with us. The reason being is, grammar can be all around the children, and we can upgrade the activity. The same activity can be made a little more complex for the older children and a little simpler for the younger children. So they will repeatedly play those games. A repeated pattern of play is also a very important development in children. Rather than always having a new game, a simple repeated pattern of play is extremely, extremely important. There are a lot of word games that are available in the market, very good quality games, but some of them may be expensive. So what I'm trying, and they're very good. So if you can afford them, please encourage the children to actually start playing a lot of board games together. It's very interesting, the Pictionaries, the Scrabble, all this, and it can keep children digitally disengaged. No harm with the digital platform. I'm not saying that it's all harmful, but digital platforms are more for me and the screen, me and myself, and it's like a more me time. But when you're actually sitting and playing group games, so that's another thing. When we were talking of bridging the gap, we were talking about having a learning gap because of the social, interactions going down with children. So even if things go, like for example, we do hope that the children are never locked into our homes all over again. Never that happens, and schools open really fast. But even once in a while, when children meet up and get together, board games and language-based games can really help children to learn grammar. It's really interesting to do. So another beautiful game to play is Groupathon. I mean, I call it Groupathon, where I say, you have to now name everything from a group of things. Like, for example, we want you to only name colors now because they're all in the same category. We want you to only name pet animals. We want you to only name. So you can do a Groupathon where you keep passing a baton and the children can keep saying the names till you change the category of what they have to find. So growth of vocabulary is extremely important. We've been talking about active vocabulary. Now, so much of the vocabulary learnt by children actually becomes sort of just on in the background. Whereas what you need to get them to do is to use it in the correct places. So sometimes, because that much of communication may not be happening, so little games will help them to use the vocabulary in the correct context. Also, what I did today was I made these little cards, I made them with a color code. There's no specific color code which is recommended by any specific organization. But if you have color coded grammar topics, it would be the best. When I say color code, all verbs to be written in one color, or maybe a line below it that is green, all adjectives to be in one color, all nouns to be in one color, all prepositions in one color, articles like that, different whatever parts of grammar that you're taking, color code them. So what happens is, every time the child sees the word, the child can associate with what part of grammar it is. And gradually, as the children go to about class 2, you can just put everything in one color and black and stop color coding it. The initial color coding in grammar will help the children just understand that, oh, these are action words, these are prepositions, these are adjectives. And it definitely helps to create a very comfortable environment in the classroom. The other thing I tell schools or teachers is that, okay, it doesn't matter. If you don't want to color code the word, don't color code it. Put little lines below the cards, put everything in black and put the lines, or put a little triangle in the corner. So these are daily color coding things which you can work beautifully with children at home and in school. The school color coding is always good. That should go to get at home, because when the children come back to school, it should be a similar color coding. So you can decide that these are the color codes. There are also generic color codes which the Montessori uses or famous courses use. So you can stick to that and it works beautifully. So now let's pack a suitcase. Let's pack this box with nouns. So the children say that, okay, so they have a box passing around and say that this is my suitcase and I'm going to pack this into my suitcase. So I say, I'm going to pack my shoes in the suitcase, and I pass it on. And the child says, I'm going to pack my shoes and my socks in the suitcase. The next person says, I'm going to pack my shoes, my socks, and my towel in the suitcase. Shoes, socks, towel, and a napkin in the suitcase. Shoes, socks, towel, belt in the. So a categorization that we talked about, the Groupathon, can be like this. And we can pack different things. We can pack our bags. We can pack a picnic basket. We can pack a gift, Christmas gifts for people. So whatever. So what happens is, everybody's mind starts triggering. And grammar, whatever concepts the children have to learn, can just be started in a lighter note. And then, of course, you can go to the exercises and whatever you have in the children's books. And nothing should be very complicated, because what happens is, when you do your grammar and you're doing your processes of in the classroom, that itself is time consuming. So your games should be very short, very crisp, very beautifully done, right? So packing the suitcase. Remember, there used to be this beautiful game when we used to wear a crown and say Queen of Shiva or Queen of wherever you want, or the king of so and so wants this. So the children go looking for those things, It used to be a fun activity. Many times teachers, what you can do is actually place things around the classroom, or take them out and say, okay, now, we want, everybody should get a stone for me, or everybody should get, or you can place things and say, now, Queen of Shiva wants this, Queen of Shiva wants that. So it's only one thing that the child has to go and bring. It works quite nicely with children, and they respond. In fact, even with adults, it works quite beautifully. So nouns in that way. Another beautiful game we used to play was that game called Statue, where you closed your eyes and suddenly you turn and everybody's doing an action and you say statue and everybody goes still. So it was so visibly actions and then being still, then actions, then being still. Little games to just the dumb charades, where you're just describing through actions and you're asking people to check. Another beautiful game that we used to play was, we used to put a tag behind the person and then keep giving them hints and they had to guess it. So a lot of language, games which will help children to get interested in grammar, learn about it more. So speed it up. Now let's do an activity that says speed it up, right? So let's get ready for that. Give me a minute. Okay, so let's begin really slow. clap your hands and touch your toes. Stand up tall on your toes. Snap your fingers and twirl around. Now bend and touch the ground. Okay. So let's go faster. Clap your hands and touch your nose. Stand up tall on your toes. Snap your fingers and twirl around. Now bend and touch the ground. Clap your hands and touch your nose. Stand up tall on your toes. Snap your fingers and twirl around. Now bend and touch the ground. Now go a little faster. Clap your hands and touch your toes. Stand up tall on your toes. Snap your fingers, twirl around. Now bend and touch the ground. So you start slow, and today I've done 4 lines of this. Gradually increase as the children grow, increase the number of lines and increase the tempo. So go faster, 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 and see if the children can listen, comprehend, and coordinate. So when you're doing grammar exercises, also start touching the essentials of the development of the children. The twirling is a great activity. Listening, coordinating, comprehending, and doing is a great activity. So start joining the developmental domains, the intelligences with grammar. It will help you to touch every kind of a child and allow grammar to become more of a fun, a story and a much, much happier time for the children, right? So, and you can make your own songs, you can make your own rhythms. There is just such a variety of beautiful ways to do it. And like we've been using a lot of finger puppets, and I mean that's what I've been using a lot in the sessions. They can be handmade, they can be used. You can now there's so much available at very very reasonable cost. This was a time. So when you do finger puppets, descriptions are a beautiful way to start. You can actually say talk about the sizes, the colors. So the children start seeing just description, and then first you start with there was a big brown lion, or and start with one a big lion, a small duck. Then you can do a brown, yellow, the colors, and then you can do big brown lines. You can actually increase the number of adjectives being used around any object and picture. That's another fun thing to do, and it can become a great activity. So I'll say, okay, so there is a big lion. Now I pass it on, and the next person says it's a big brown lion, a big brown and white lion, a big, so till any activity which is like a relay becomes like how many words can you add for that one thing. That's one of the most effective and very simple, because like today I tell you a story on with these animals. Next day I use the same story for description. The next day I use the same story for naming, for the description, and for what action the lion did. He went prowling. So first of all, there was a big lion in the forest, and there was, let's just take one example. And there was a yellow duck. Let's take away the other animal. And the lion was wanting to eat the duck, and the duck, jumped into the pool. The next day, you can continue the story in whatever order. The next day you say that, okay, now we're going to do the story again. So now there was a big brown lion and there was a small yellow duck. The big brown lion was prowling. The small yellow duck was swimming. So I have added one more concept to it. Then the big brown lion was prowling slowly, swimming quickly. I can add an adverb to it. So it's about how we keep using the same concept and add more things to it. The big brown lion was prowling and hid behind the tree. I've added a preposition today. So you can actually say growing the grammar with a single story. That's another very effective way of allowing children to associate different concepts and become very aware that now we are doing the verbs, we're adding the adjective, we're adding the prepositions, just the basics. Once the children grow, this becomes like a very interesting way that they start thinking and narrating stories. right? So a growing story with this is a beautiful way to do. Uh, the dog and the bone, that used to be like the, whisper, you have two teams, you have a ball or a proper bone or something, and have the children standing on both sides, give them both, maybe opposites or colors or whatever, and then you say go, and you say blue, and then both come and pick up. It's absolutely exciting, and it's not expensive, none of these games are expensive games. Then we used to have this lovely thing where we give them little slips of paper, and we tell them that, okay, now we'll say 1, 2, 3, and you have to go and stand in your corners. And if you go to the wrong corner, you're out. And suddenly, when they were running, we used to change the corners. We would make the verbs the nouns the adjectives the noun. And the children would, because mentally they are ready, that nouns was there. Now suddenly they'll say, no, no, the noun is here. Oh, and it's just an activity which will trigger them. That's it. And it will make them mindful. So that's a beautiful activity to do. Like you have little name tags. I have a name tag, and I drop my name tag. Everybody picks up the name tags, goes and looks for that person. So you're actually finding the name of a person. Then with the name of a person, I start a description of the person, a physical description, that Sonia, tall Sonia, or, whatever description. And then otherwise we add adjective of quality. So smart, intelligent. So each one can describe themselves in their own way. That becomes beautiful. Another lovely thing children must do is riddles. I also in my I live in a building, and I watch children play and interact, and I feel these very simple, mundane things which we would spend hours on, somehow or the other are not used as much. So maybe if we gently nudge the children into playing these little games when you're walking with them, when you're going out with them, it would really help children to go back and play these with their friends, right? So riddles is lovely. Opposites, I would love to do opposites when I'm doing stories. So when I do stories, I will say that, there is a big cat and you have to give me the opposite. And then, so the story becomes absolutely funny by the end. So suppose there's this big elephant, and the child has to say, oh, there was a tiny elephant. So it just becomes like a lovely story which completely changes in description. And these are not like complex. They're simple to do, and they're very, very quick to do. Another lovely thing to do is punctuation when you're doing stories. When we narrate or read stories to children, we very rarely consciously pause at the commas and full stops. So when you're reading to children, if you do the right pauses, when they're actually being introduced to the comma and full stop in a formal way, they'll be able to understand it so much better, right? So that is how these little things are going to. And another very important thing is, look for the simplicity of what you're giving your children. And also, I also see that we say naming words, action words, position words, but we don't use the words noun, verbs, prepositions. And I haven't understood why we don't do that. I think they should know that these are the formal parts and this is what they're named. Don't we call it the alphabet? Don't we call categories like that? Even proper grammar terms, I don't see any harm. Of course, application grammar is what we're anyway talking about. We don't want the children to say a noun is a naming word, but there is no harm in the child knowing that naming words have a name, and that's called a noun. I think it's perfectly okay. So start doing a few more activities around the names. I think it's a good thing for children to get that. Another interesting game to do is, take a small cardboard box. And I told you about color coding, right? So now I have used different colors. I can either just toss it, and if it comes on a black, I have to recollect what was the thing. If I want to make it simpler for children, I simply also write the category of what I want the child to name or write, and I just take it and I go to the black because I want all the nouns back, and I paste it over here. Okay, so when I paste it here, then the minute my child tosses the dice, It could be a noun, or one side could be an adjective or an adverb or a preposition, or and my children can either draw it, they can write it, they can just name it. Even a game like Scrabble, these are things which can be so easily done in our environment, whether it's our classrooms, whether it is another lovely game to do is the alphabetical order. In fact, 26 children can participate instantly. And So you give them all one name. It could be just use strips of paper. You don't have to buy very expensive things. So the game can be that you cut the paper into 5 centimeter strips or 10 centimeters. A 10 centimeter strip is a good size for a word. So you cut them into 10 centimeter strips and give it to the children. And then you tell them that, okay, I'm going to give you one letter and you have to write any object with that name. So first the children build the strips, name strips with you one day. The next day you distribute it and say, okay, your time starts now and you have to all stand in alphabetical order. So because they've created their own strips, they've already got ready with it. This is something which they can do with so much of ease. These are games which I used to play with children when I used to be teaching in schools. So today, instead of Googling and making a whole list from the Google, I decided to just consolidate what I used to do with children. I thought that these were few things that were very effective. The bingo was another one of my favorites. Of course, that is very common and a lot of children play it. But the bingo can be played in many different ways. You can get the children to draw on blocks and you can move them and play a board game with pictures and different things. You can do a beautiful bingo on the thing with habits. So the children can actually, and then you photocopy them and give it to the children, and then you call out the habits, and whoever fills up a line. So they're little concepts that you can do over a period with children. For me, as I am also thinking of how we will be using combining the early years, pre-primary with the foundation, that's class 1 and 2. That's also a thought which is now in a lot of people's minds. So when children go to class 1, when children go to class 2, these games are going to be like their consolidation. Because that's the time when grammar actually begins, when you have a grammar part of your lessons and things like that. And if these children can actually play these games on a regular basis, definitely their introduction into a slightly more formal step of grammar will be so much better. So I thought that I must very quickly put together a lot of these little games that I play with children, and I do hope that you found it useful. You should be, and you carry it forward and make your lists, and make your game lists of what you enjoy playing, what you think works really beautifully with children, modify them according to the needs of the the group of children you're working with, and have a happy time teaching them different parts of grammar. Next week, we are going to be consolidating a whole lot of information that has been shared, a whole lot of ideas. So I'm going to pick up the key ideas from every session and I'm going to consolidate it before we finish 2021. It's been a long journey. It's been a lot of learning and it's been a lot of ideas. So I'm actually going to sit down and consolidate a beautiful evening for all of us. It also, I say us because for me to recap and learn is also really important. A lot of times when people ask me, so what did you qualify with? So I always tell them, I just meet the right people, right? And I think that's what is, growing is all about. So enjoy your grammar time, build happy learning and make your lists, make your activity lists, color code your words and have a happy time with children. Thank you so much and bye-bye.
Square Panda.